Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jack the Mermaid, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different from our usual content, but it's going to become a series on the channel that I really hope you'll enjoy. We are going to start reading my very first novel that I wrote over a decade ago when I was 21 years old. I thought it would be really fun to revisit it and share it with you all in a soft-spoken reading format with some immersive twists with our visuals and our soundscapes, so you can just escape into the story and take a little break from real life. This novel is called Sideways into Chaos. It is a young adult science fiction novel, and I originally intended it to be the first book in a trilogy. So we'll see if one day I get around to writing the rest of the series. Maybe if you all really like it, that will prompt me to get back into the story. Alright, grab yourself a cozy blanket, a cup of tea or a snack, and let's settle in for some story time. Sideways into Chaos. Prologue. This book is made of atoms, but you already knew that. Maybe the thought hadn't exactly occurred to you, but subconsciously you were aware of the fact that this book is made of atoms, just like everything is. Take a moment to consider just how many atoms this book contains. The precise number is so large that trying to mentally cram it into an object as small as a book might cause your brain to feel funny, like the first time you rode a roller coaster and your stomach turned inside out and dropped to your toes, and you weren't ready for it. That's how it was for me. I'll do you a favor and leave it up to your imagination. But to give you an idea of just how many atoms are in this book, I'll say that even if you counted one atom every second for the rest of your lifetime, it wouldn't be enough, not by a long shot. Each of the atoms in this book has lived countless lives. Think about that. They have not always been part of these pages, but they have always been part of this story. Long before arriving in your hands, they were scattered into a million different histories. And slowly, over time, those histories trickled together like tiny streams of rain after a storm, and are now pooled together in the ocean of now. It won't be long before everything scatters again. That is simply the basic nature of all matter, all energy, and cannot be helped. Nothing is ever truly destroyed, only rearranged, dealt over and over like playing cards in an infinite game. But there is a special gravity to this particular moment, this particular ocean of now. This is the moment towards which everything has been moving, and from which it will move. It is important that you know that. The atoms in this book are old souls. They've been part of stories you wouldn't believe, and they'll go on being part of them long after your time in this life has ended. That's just how the game is played. You're a part of the story too, you know. You just can't see it from where you're standing, like I couldn't. But you will. Part 1. Heat death. Definition. A thermodynamic state in which there is no longer available energy left to do work. A state of uniform distribution of energy in which motion and change can no longer occur, also known as stagnancy. Chapter 1. It. The fugitive is running. Thump, thump, thump. Her heart rate is elevated. We track her progress through the ether's energy mainframe, following the most direct pathways. Corridor 67 Alpha in the outer section of Branch 5 of the Authority compound. Corridor 67 Beta. She wavers at the fork in the dimmed glass passageway, her lungs pumping. Corridor 68 Alpha to the left, 67 Gamma to the right. She chooses the former. She accelerates. Thump, thump, thump. Her pulse is rising. Her pupils are dilated. She knows she is trapped. Bring her to me. Gantley's order grips us like an electrical impulse through a synapse. Our primary objectives are reprogrammed. Yes, sir. We activate the level 1 alarm system. The pixels in the walls burn hot with flashing illumination. The light ripples around the fugitive as she runs. High-pitched sound waves are emitted into the air. The fugitive grimaces. She inserts her crystal access key into an entry port near Branch 6 to escape the corridor. Access denied. She makes a second attempt at another port further down the corridor. Access granted. We infiltrate the port network, systematically maneuvering her through the compound labyrinth towards the outside, where Gantley is waiting. Access denied, access denied, access granted. We are everywhere, watching her run like millions of eyes, although we do not have eyes. We listen to the vibration of her lungs on the grid, to the whispers of her hair undulating behind her in a dark wave. We listen to her fear. Access granted. The fugitive launches through the final portal into the night. Halt! Gantley's men are swift. They emerge from the shadows, helmets and weapons glinting in the red light of the digital timekeeper in the plasmasphere, the innermost layer of the veil fizzling at the edge of the artificial atmosphere. Through the ether mainframe, we feel the timekeeper processing the raw data transmitted from the external probes beyond the veil's protective shield. Outside of the veil, there is nothing, only the barren terrain of Asylum, the asteroid that sustains the last Omalian colony, and death. 201.62 days left until the end of the universe, the timekeeper reads. 201.616, 201.613. When she senses Gantley's men, the fugitive's heart rate quickens. She resists. We observe the struggle from the periphery of the mainframe, thrashing limbs, a flurry of dust, a muffled grunt as the fugitive is tranquilized. We listen as the Oasis serum enters her bloodstream. She drops to her knees, her jaw tight. Don't fight it, Vera. High Consul Gantley steps out of the darkness. His motions are languid and measured. The fugitive glares at him. We watch her muscles succumb to the Oasis paralysis and go limp. But still she resists, with clenched teeth, twitching. A faux star collides with the exterior of the veil overhead, a piece of cosmic rubble adrift in a dying universe. There is a burst of light as the faux star disintegrates in the electrical current of the veil. The light reflects in Gantley's pupils and the glass facades of the nearest buildings in Cradle City. A scar at Gantley's left temple casts a thin shadow on his face. You're only wasting precious energy, he says. I wouldn't want to burn you again. The fugitive's eyelids flutter. She falls into unconsciousness, her body slumping. Gantley brushes her hand with his boot. Take her to containment, room 57. Sweep the fulcrum. The minder guards disperse accordingly. The fugitive is hoisted up and transported to containment in Branch 9. A data cube is found in a small pouch stitched into the lining of her uniform. It is impenetrable, encrypted in a way we do not recognize. The files stored within it cannot be accessed. The data cube is suspended in a magnetic field across the containment chamber. It spins slowly above the thin black column that houses the informational port. The rest of the fugitive's clothing is stripped and discarded. She is restrained, naked and unconscious, to an examination table. Gantley observes as the technician administers an intravenous feed. The white serum surges into her veins. Revive her, he commands. Leave her body in paralysis from the shoulders down. We want our guest to feel comfortable. Yes, sir. We manipulate the control system to recalibrate the dosage. The fugitive's eyes roll forward from her skull and find Gantley standing over her. Her pulse rises momentarily and then stabilizes. Hello, Vera, Gantley says. The fugitive does not respond. She turns her head and studies her unmoving fingers. We analyze her energy field and detect minute levels of panic. Your body is still in paralysis, Gantley informs her. The fugitive does not respond. She straightens her neck and fixes her gaze at the overhead lights. Where is she, Vera? I know you know where the drifter is. No data. The fugitive's expression and energy field remain unresponsive. Gantley moves around the examination table. He runs his index finger You take that back. Gantley moves around the examination table. He runs his index finger over the wide burn mark on the fugitive's chest and abdomen. The fugitive's eyes become hard. We both have our scars, don't we? Gantley smiles. You and I are not so very different, you know. We see where this world is going. We do not shy away from it like the rest of them. The pathetic masses waiting to be saved. We are the strong ones. We do what must be done. Silence. The ether mainframe hums around us. I am nothing like you, the fugitive says. I don't kill innocent people. Really? Feeling regret so soon? Gantley says. I thought you were better than that. He leans over and searches the fugitive's face. I must admit, though, I was surprised to learn that it was you, of all people, who betrayed her. For the first time, the fugitive's expression displays signs of emotion, surprise. I don't know what you think you know, Gantley, she says, but whatever it is, I can assure you, it didn't come from me. Gantley examines her. Spectre, he says, addressing us via the ether window above the console. Ready an Oasis unit. Tell Bowen to bring it in and prepare the new sleeper. Yes, sir, we reply. The fugitive's jaw stiffens again. She attempts to subdue her fear. She is unsuccessful. We access the control subsystem several stories below in the subterranean research facilities. The researchers have gone. The day cycle will not reset for another 4.7 hours. We prompt the console to retrieve an Oasis unit from the airtight reserve storage chamber. The unit is transported upstairs to containment through a conveyance tube. We alert Bowen, a minder technician and Sorpentis addict, to retrieve the unit and deliver it to room 57. All right, Vera, Gantley continues. I'll tell you what I know, and then you can fill in the missing pieces for me. Gantley motions for Bowen to enter the room and begin prepping the fugitive for the Oasis coma. We observe Bowen's eyes linger on the fugitive's naked body as he extracts the disposable clipping shears from the Oasis unit. The fugitive glares at them, but Bowen is too inebriated to notice. He begins to shave the fugitive's head with imprecise movements, scraping the fugitive's scalp. A trickle of blood spills through the blades onto the floor. We activate the self-cleaning function, and the blood is absorbed and disposed of. The fugitive does not react to the pain stimulus. Long clusters of her hair fall to the ground in dark coils. Gantley is pacing now. He picks up a cluster of hair, inhales its scent, grins at the fugitive, then throws it into the incinerator. Fabrum has been hiding a female drifter, he says. His father, Byron, was an accomplice, but Fabrum and the drifter were betrayed, presumably by you, and now the girl is nowhere to be found. I didn't betray anyone, the fugitive responds. Gantley pauses. Don't you see? Betraying her was for the greater good. Within her lies the key to our salvation, to more life for all. More of what kind of life? The fugitive asks. One actually worth living? Her mind is defiant. The buzzing of the clipping shears fills another moment of silence. But Gantley is calm. What were you doing in Fabrum's apartment tonight? he asks. The fugitive does not respond. Gantley continues pacing. What is on that cube? He points to the data cube rotating in its magnetic field above the informational port. The fugitive does not respond. Bowen has finished removing the hair on her head. He seizes her face and proceeds to remove her eyebrows, then releases her. I know you, Vera. Gantley stares down at the fugitive, now devoid of hair. Perhaps you didn't betray them. Perhaps you did. Either way, you've decided to be loyal, and now there's nothing I can do to your body that will make you break, is there? So why waste time? We have so little of it these days. The fugitive glares at him. Gantley touches his pointer finger to the fugitive's temple and leans in closer. But you haven't begun to see what I can do to you in here. This time, dear old Fabrum isn't here to protect you. I will break you so completely that no one, not your little rebel friends, not the drifter herself, will be able to put you back together again. He turns away. She's ready for Oasis Immersion, sir, Bowen says. Gantley pivots to face the fugitive. The corners of his mouth turn up. He is pleased. Do it, he commands. Yes, High Consul, sir. Bowen picks up the Oasis syringe from the unit and inspects it. The fugitive's eyes are closed, her jawbones set. Bowen gives her a series of rapid Oasis root injections, 4 down each arm, 6 on her spine, and 2 at the base of her brainstem. We feel the Oasis roots burrow into her skeletal system and germinate. They tunnel through her muscle tissue and sprout through her skin. Billions of self-replicating nanorobots that crawl across her body in long white colonies. The fugitive's eyes are still closed. Her jaw has released and her mouth hangs open in a silent scream. The Oasis colonies merge and diverge across the surface of her body. Vines, the researchers call them. They infiltrate her nervous system. They infiltrate her neural network, clouding her eyes. The fugitive twitches involuntarily as her body is invaded. One of the glowing Oasis vines climbs up her face and enters her mouth, reaching down into her throat to regulate her stomach and digestive system. The vines extend to the floor in coils and attach themselves to the ether board. We scan the system, ascertaining that no errors were made. The fugitive is now inert, her consciousness securely contained in the virtual reality cell of the Oasis coma. She is ready, sir, we say to Gantley. Enhanced interrogation can now begin. Chapter 2. Him. Your time is almost up. The words echo through my brain like a gong. Your time is almost up. Your time is almost up. All around me in the lecture hall, panicked faces glance up at the professor. They remind me of the gazelles I used to watch get eaten on the Discovery Channel when I was a kid. The ones whose eyes always filled up with that look of, oh crap, just before becoming lunch for some lion. Except instead of a lion, it's a final exam. I should look like them. Should be scared shitless that my GPA is taking a beating, just like all the other college freshmen in the room. But I don't, and I'm not. I'm still trying to decide if it's worth feeling guilty about that. The professor is a goofy-looking dude with a hard-to-pronounce name who touches his chin a lot. He's wearing tweed. Cliché, I know, but I swear to God he is. I watch as he scrutinizes the stubs of chalk along the board, chooses the perfect one, and scratches out a warning on the board in big, looping letters. 10 minutes left. The acoustics in this place are so good that I'm pretty sure I can hear every pulse in the room pick up speed. The air is already seething with the sound of scribbling pens, of squeaky chairs and coughs, and the nervous foot tapping of someone at the back of the hall that's starting to drive me nuts. Tap, 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 like a freaking metronome on Adderall. I look my exam over one more time to make sure I've included enough squirrel doodles and half-hearted attempts at formulas, which I know are probably botched because I didn't bother to study at all. The heading at the top of the page reads, Physics 1, Section 3A, Final Exam, in a really intimidating font. Underneath it, in a space marked name, I scrawl out Tian Hale in blocky capital letters and write in the date, December 16th, 2001. Then I set my pen down, force out a sigh, and sink down against the stiff wooden seat, thinking about my Aunt Joyce. How long before she hears I've dropped out, before she comes looking for me? When I was little and Joyce and I were still friends, she would tell me stories about what it was like when she was at school here. I remember listening to her talk about her award-winning professors, her 200-year-old dorm that looked like something out of The Once and Future King. How she was really starting to find herself, like her identity was the missing sock in the dryer. After she left, I would sit with my mom and promise myself that one day those stories would be mine too. But I'm not that kid anymore. I haven't been for a long time. Tap, 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 tap. Jesus Christ, buddy, give it a rest. I crack my knuckles. I tell myself it's to help block out the foot tapping, but really it's to keep the memories from getting out. It's hard to just sit here and wait and not think about them, but remembering inevitably leads me back to my mom and everything that happened, and there's no point getting worked up about all of that right now. Instead, I let my eyes roam around the room to all the bodies hunched over their stupidly small desks. It's a crime, really, the size of these damn desks. Their hands move like frantic shuttles in 100 fabric looms, trying to keep up with their brains, back and forth, like it means something. 5 minutes to go now. The professor is at the board again, jotting down the time like he's bored and has way more important things to do. Apparently, no one ever bothered to tell him that the answer to life, the universe, and everything had already been found. 42, I write in one of the empty squares on my answer sheet, just for the hell of it. I cap my pen and stuff it into my backpack. The scraping of the chalk on the board makes the hands move even faster. The foot tapper is on the verge of exploding. That's my cue. I scoop up the pages of my bogus exam, swing my backpack onto my shoulder. By the time I straighten up, I am standing in the middle of an ocean of gazes, all pointing up at my face, and I suddenly think I know how it felt to be the first primordial fish to sprout legs and make a break for land. How did he? This test is impossible. So jealous. I shake off the twinge in my stomach by taking the stairs down to the front of the hall, 2 at a time. My footsteps echo like firecrackers. I toss my exam onto the podium and grin at the professor, who looks doubtful. Great exam. I really enjoyed it, I say. I pretend I'm talking about an aged wine. The professor sort of nods at me like he has heartburn and touches his chin. I'm not as glad as I expect to be when I finally escape through the revolving doors. It's flurrying again, and I tug my hood up over my ears. I hate snow. I hate the bite of the East Coast in winter, the way it makes all the buildings on campus seem even more stuck up. The Gothic stone towers look like mean old ladies draped in snobby white furs. They stare down at me as I walk by, knowing that I don't belong. And they're right. I don't. Once upon a time, when things were different, I did belong to someone and someplace. To the California sunshine, to the sound of the ocean and the smell of salt water. My mom was poor, and the beach was the best substitute for a backyard a kid could ask for. Even now, I still dream about floating in a cradle of waves, listening to the sound of her laughter skip across the surf. But in this place, I'm landlocked. In this place, I don't feel like my mom's son anymore. I'm not sure who I feel like. When I space out like I'm doing right now, sometimes my brain gets stuck on a word and makes my fingers type it out over and over. As I trudge through the snow across the main road that cuts through campus, snow crunching beneath my shoes like bits of glass, I realize that I've been distractedly typing the word floating to the rhythm of the foot tapper in the lecture hall. Tap, tap, tap. I ball my gloved hands into fists and shove them into the pockets of my coat. Outside my dorm, there are 3 students smoking together in an archway. One of them is a sophomore who lives on my floor, although I don't know his name. He's leaning against the inside of the arch with that devil-may-care kind of look you only ever see on other people, never yourself. He's talking to 2 blonde girls I haven't seen before. One of them is tall, the other is small with red lips and a sizable chest. I think about saying hi. People do that, right? Just say hi to each other. I've never been one of those guys with loads of charm and luck. I had one on-again, off-again girlfriend in high school, but that was it. Sweet-talking girls' pants off isn't exactly my forte. I watch the 3 of them take deep drags on their cigarettes, the white ribbons of smoke curling around their jaws as the wind blows over the courtyard. Seeing them makes me want to smoke too, because nicotine does wonders for my nerves. But Carl made me promise I wouldn't anymore, which is pretty hypocritical, considering that Carl smokes like a chimney. Do as I say, not as I do. That's what he told me. Carl was a friend of my mom's when I was growing up, and these days he's about the closest thing to a parent I have. I mean, Joyce likes to think of herself as my parent too, but a legal guardian just isn't the same thing as a parent. It just isn't. I don't say hi. I figure there's no point since I won't see them again after today. I managed to shake most of the snow off my sneakers before I pushed through the heavy oak doors into North B Hall. I take the stairwell up to the 2nd floor. Some do-gooder in the building has decorated the handrail with tinsel and garland. I do my best to ignore it. Plastered to the stairwell wall is an American flag poster with "United We Stand" written under it in Sharpie. Next to it, in pencil, some asswipe has scrawled the words, 9/11 equals conspiracy? My third-floor common room, in all its disheveled glory, is empty and quiet when I slip my key into the lock and step inside. I guess my roommate Jeremy is still passed out in his room because his boots are sitting undisturbed right where he dropped them last night. The thin margin of space under his closed door is dark. I yell out to him to get his lazy ass out of bed, strip off my winter coat and gloves, and toss them onto the Target futon beneath the window. Inside the communal mini-fridge are a half-empty bottle of Coke and a small carton of milk that I bought at the student store yesterday. I pry open the milk carton and dump as much as I can fit into the Coke bottle so that it makes a kind of root beer float knockoff. I'm always doing things like this, mixing foods and flavors in ways most normal people would stick out their tongues at. Carl calls me a food rebel. The bulk of my stuff is already packed. Final exams don't finish for another week or so, but once I made up my mind to leave, I just didn't see the point. I don't really know why I went to my physics exam. Maybe to prove to myself that I could sit there and go through the motions and still not care. I wonder what Joyce will do when she finds out I'm gone. Tell the school I had a psychotic break, maybe. Beg them to give me my spot back. But flashy universities like this one don't hand out second chances like free breath mints. No. What I'm doing now is for good. No take-backs. This thought makes my gut start to spasm again, so to stay chill, I pour myself into a series of little tasks. I fold t-shirts, I match socks, I check and recheck the closet, the desk, and the small wooden bookshelf, taking sips from my milk and Coke and setting it on the dresser. The only thing left in the room, apart from the IKEA mirror by the door, is a thin cardboard box that I've been saving for last. Inside it are some old photographs, a bundle of handwritten letters, the card my mom gave me for my 13th birthday, and a silver ring crowned with an Egyptian ankh. In my mind, I recite the poem that's written in the card, the one that's always been a mystery to me, but that I know by heart. Given a moment in time, what would you do? Who would you be? Would you look up and down and sideways into chaos and curse the grand design we cannot see? Would you sit in solitude for days and days on end? Or would you give yourself to the calling of a friend, and in so doing, count yourself one in the brotherhood of man? The words tug on my lungs like tiny anchors as I play them in my head. When I was a kid, I had no idea what this poem meant, or why she chose to write it down for me. I still don't. Not really. She died before I had the chance to ask her. Before I had the chance to say a lot of things I wish like crazy I had. There's a tap on the door, and Jeremy pokes his head in. "You taken off?" he asks. "Afraid so," I answer, still clutching the box in my hands. I start to tuck it into the outside pocket of my suitcase, and then think better of it. Instead, I slip it into my backpack next to my laptop. "You're disgusting," Jeremy says, pointing to the Coke bottle on my dresser and making a face. He pulls on a sweatshirt and slouches into the room and onto my bed, a 6'4" varsity football player with a crew cut and a six-pack. "And that Coke was mine." "I didn't see your name on it," I say. I throw him a sidelong grin, because I actually like Jeremy. He's cocky in a likable way. For reasons I'll never understand, Jeremy decided early on that he was going to be my friend, whether I liked it or not. Which is saying something, since I'm not that easy to be friends with. I keep to myself too much. Jeremy laces his boots against the bed frame. So, you finally decided you couldn't cut it, huh, Sebastian? He jokes, eyeing my suitcase. I know he doesn't mean this seriously, but my mind still floods with all the reasons why it's true. Yeah, I did. Because I'm drowning here. Because I can't stand to owe Joyce anything. Because the only reason I came here in the first place was to honor my dead mother, and I'm tired of pretending like it means anything. To be honest, all of those reasons are just excuses. There's something else that's driving me. It's like when you're sitting in the back seat of a cramped car and you're trying to keep your cool, but at some point the claustrophobia sinks its teeth into you, and the second you tell yourself, I want out, you can't think about anything else. You think you might crack up right there, even though logically you know this makes 0 sense. That's how it is for me in this place. I'm careful not to say any of this out loud, because I know it wouldn't mean a thing to Jeremy, who thinks college is everything the movies promised it would be, and then some. So instead, I just laugh and punch him in the arm, despite the fact that I'm a good 3 inches shorter than he is. Nah, I'm just too good for this place. And I hate it when you call me Sebastian. That's why I do it. Jeremy grins at me. But seriously, couldn't you just join a club or something? Get out a little more? I wait for him to punch me too, but he doesn't. Maybe because he knows this is a big deal and doesn't want to be a jerk about it. And hang out with a bunch of dumb jocks? I say, because I know Jeremy thinks I'm an antisocial hermit, which I sort of am. Yeah, right. Besides, there are tons of poor saps out there who would kill to take my spot. Better one of them than me. When Jeremy doesn't joke back, an awkward silence descends, and I pretend to count all the boxer shorts in my suitcase. Does this have anything to do with that weird dude on the bus? I stop counting my underwear and look up at him, wishing I had kept my mouth shut about that. It had happened 2 days ago, when I was on the local outbound bus coming back from the shopping mall on the other side of town, where I go sometimes to get away from campus. A crazy guy had asked to sit down next to me, like we were old friends meeting up again after a long hiatus. Yeah, sure, I had said. I had been so caught off guard that the words slipped out by accident, and I instantly regretted them. The guy could have been the Unabomber for all I knew. Where are you headed? The man asked, brushing snowflakes from his grimy trench coat and sitting down. Most of his face was covered up by a mane of dirty hair and a thick brown beard the color of tree bark. My insides cringed. Short answers, I told myself. Just keep it simple. Just back to campus, I said. Right. He nodded thoughtfully. But where are you really going? It was a weird question, yeah, but even weirder was that I somehow understood what he meant without even having to think about it. Honestly, nowhere. I have no clue what made me say it. Once I did, though, there had been no taking it back, no stopping the sudden swell of anxiety that had been quietly building in the corners of my brain for months. I'm going nowhere. I shrugged my shoulders at Jeremy and busy my hands with packing again. No, I lie. It's just time for me to go. The words must come off as harsher than I planned because Jeremy falls silent. Well, Tian, he says, after a pause so long that I start to feel guilty. You're lame for wimping out, but you're still all right, I guess. Thanks, I say, and I smile at him, but I know he's just being nice. You're not so bad yourself, for a jock. Jeremy laughs. It's the sort of honest laughter that can fill up a room and make dropping out of college feel like a good idea. He gives me a comfortable grin. I gotta take off. I promised Liz I'd help her study for econ. I snort at him and shake my head. Jeremy is an art history major who doesn't know jack squat about economics. Liz is his current flavor of the week. Girls throw themselves at him a lot, which has gotten pretty annoying over the past few months. I've slept with a pillow over my head more times than I care to remember. He tried to divert a few of those girls to me, but he's a tough guy to compete with. Not that I tried very hard. I may not be a Casanova, but I don't want someone else's sloppy seconds. Right. Have fun with that, I say. Oh, I will. He raises his eyebrow. But hey, take it easy, yeah? Smiling again, he offers me his hand. We shake, and in the back of my mind, I wonder how long it will be before I make a new friend so easily. Maybe never. Sure, you too, I say. With one last nod, my soon-to-be ex-roommate turns to leave. He pauses on the threshold and calls back over his shoulder. Hey, Tian, maybe we'll see each other in another lifetime, yeah? Yeah, maybe. Jeremy's face disappears. The door swings shut. For a second, I curse the silence, wishing, like I sometimes do, that my mom hadn't had that miscarriage when I was little. But if she hadn't, I'd now have a kid brother to worry about in all of this, and considering everything he would have had to deal with by now, a pretty messed up one at that. I'm messed up enough for the both of us. After a few seconds, the air settles like kicked up dirt, and I stop thinking about my imaginary brother. I let the silence wrap around me like an extra layer of skin. It's nothing I haven't worn before. I fiddle with my suitcase for a few more minutes before zipping it shut. I yank it off my bed and sling my backpack up onto my shoulder. My one-word reply to the bum on the bus playing on repeat in my mind. Nowhere, nowhere, nowhere. I grab my milk and coke from the dresser and turn from the room to leave. I stop short when I catch my reflection in the mirror by the door. I'm just shy of 6 feet tall, with dark, wavy hair that's always a bit of a mess. I'm not big and bulky like Jeremy, but I'm stronger than I look. I'm 17. I'll be 18 in just under a month, but I could pass for 22 any day of the week. I think because I skipped a grade and always felt older than my age. If it weren't for the cagey hazel eyes and the blank expression, I might be good looking. My fists are clenched, like I'm getting ready to run or fight. I glance down at my sneakers and try to rearrange my face into something that looks carefree, the way I want to feel. But when I glance back up at my reflection, nothing has really changed. I still look like a chump. Whatever. With a sigh, I push past the mirror and out the door. I slip on my winter coat and gloves in the common room, give the place one last sweeping look, and then I'm gone. Her. I am the last drifter. Cradle City looms up at me through the red night as I toe the rim of the giant crater. The field around me is a maroon tangle of overlapping shadows that reaches all the way to the sheer drop-off, as though the stalks are daring each other to move closer to the brink, to defy death. I stand in the midst of them at the edge of the cliff and look down, listening. Send me something, please, my mind begs. Where is she? No answer. The silence is so heavy that it leans on me from all sides, daring me to lose my composure and surrender to fear, to imagine the worst. But like all the Omelian people in 314, I have been taught since birth to master my emotions as much as possible, to shut them away in the far reaches of my being where they cannot cause damage. In my world, this is a matter of survival. The end of the universe is coming. We accept this. We persevere. We do our best not to dwell on feelings. Even now, only the most skilled reader in the cradle would be able to detect the faint scent of dread in my energy field. Anyone else would never suspect that I am desperate, would never suspect that my entire world is on the verge of collapse. Having lived most of my life among the inner circle of a secret rebel organization, I am no stranger to danger and loss. I have seen many of my friends and allies captured and killed by the Authority, yet in spite of my past experiences with tragedy, I am not prepared for this. I am not prepared to lose the two most important people in my life. My father, Fabrum, has disappeared, may already be dead, and now Vera, the leader of the conscience, has been taken prisoner. Vera. A small rock dislodges from the edge of the cradle and plummets towards the sleeping city. I watch it fall into the gloom, recalling how Vera and I would stand in this exact spot when we were girls, clasp hands, and jump. With fingers entwined, we would plunge together through the void. "Now, Sam," she would whisper, and I would pull us into the in-between and transport us back to the edge of the crater where we began. It was our game, our secret, but that was before the Authority began to detect my abilities, before we fully understood the laws of the world we lived in. Vera is falling towards death again, and this time I am not there to catch her. No. I can feel the panic in my brain push against the mental barrier holding it back, but I force myself to keep numb. The Authority's red timekeeper flickers high above me, stretching from one end of the veil to the other. The red glow it casts on the fields and city below is so thick it's as if the air is suffused with vaporized blood. It is the only night cycle light source we have left. All the other lights in the vast cosmic space beyond our constructed atmosphere have gone out. From my vantage point on the ground, I can feel the timekeeper calculating, counting down to the moment the universe will die. 201.593 days, 201.591. It never sleeps. I'm not sure how long I stand there, waiting for any sign of the link. My body tenses, and even though I am not technically using my eyes to see the way I want to, I let them narrow on a circular black building nestled in the center of the city. For this task, I am using a different kind of seeing, and I see nothing. Nothing but the faint, lurking wavelengths of the city sectors and their inhabitants far below me. The tiny pinpoints of light that mark the easternmost minder guard towers and compost centers blink up at me through the scarlet air. Otherwise, I am alone. The link is gone. Behind the secret wall in my mind, I am terrified of what this means. I spin around and dart down the access pathway that cuts through the forest of stalks. After a stretch of running, I veer from it and carve a trail through another section of field until I arrive in a small clearing where a familiar dome-shaped building stands. Long ago, it was an abandoned livestock pod. Now it is headquarters, the place I have spent the majority of my waking hours. I take the passageway inside and am ushered underground into the softly lit chamber that serves as our main atrium. When I enter, I see that Ori has settled himself on one of his perches near the apex of the ceiling. His head snaps upright at the sound of my feet. It is time, I tell him. Vera needs us. The sleek tips of his black and purple wings shift against his body. I'm ready, he tells me. Standing across the room at the window console is a man named Wraith, whom I have known since I was a child. He is the constant within our circle, the caretaker of the conscience. He turns to me with his arms folded behind his back. His straight gray hair just touches the tops of his shoulders. "Anything?" he asks, through a facade of calm that reflects my own. No, I can't sense her at all. She must already be in Oasis. I scarcely look at him as I move around the room. My brain occupies itself with the details, letting my hands find the objects I will need. The vibe blade Fabrum made for me, my data cube, a small collection of nutrient powder, and tucking them into the utility strap across my chest. Allowing the scope of my thoughts to expand any wider than this is dangerous. It is not productive to worry about what will happen, I tell myself. It is not productive to be afraid. The only thing that matters now is finding a mirror who can save Vera. The conscience needs its leader back, and so do I. When I turn to stand in front of Wraith again, Ori drifts down from his perch and lands on my shoulder with the practiced grace of a shadow. You have to move quickly, Wraith advises. Gantley could send a specter after you. The farther back I go, the harder I'll be to follow. There should be enough time. Wraith reaches out and touches my arm. Good luck, Sempur. May your purpose save you. I nod at him. May it save us all. And with a subtle swish of the surrounding air, Ori and I disappear. For a long time, I am in the in-between. The pressure of space-time builds as I drift further and further away, surpassing my prior record by a factor of 1,000, and then 1,000,000, and then 100,000,000. I am rocketing through a tube of light that becomes brighter and more constricting with each regressing moment. The in-between morphs around me, becomes unrecognizable. Trust the link, I tell myself. It knows where to go. When I step into existence again, it is on foreign ground. I arrive dizzy, with closed eyes and a throbbing skull. The first thing my mind registers is how light and weightless the grid feels here. A welcome change after the pressurized vacuum of the in-between. It is also loud. Waves of sound and motion crash into me from every angle. I can feel the tremors of many footsteps, large contraptions growling past, making a terrible screeching noise, and radiation coming from up above. An overpowering amount of warmth and radiation that is unmatched by anything the veil could produce. It is a star, I think. There is a star in the sky. I learned all about stars from the Authority archives when I was a young girl. Immense, self-sustaining spheres of burning gas that served as the engines and lanterns of the old universe. I learned about natural gravity and the process by which star systems developed satellites and planets, some of which could harbor life. But no amount of learning could have prepared me for this. This is what Starlight feels like. This is what the old universe feels like. I do not move. I do not open my eyes. The star's radiation envelops me, and I drink it in, awestruck. That's when I notice the voices, shocked voices pointed at me. Ori's talons clamp defensively around my shoulder just as my muscles tighten. I blink my eyes open to a world that is far brighter and far more colorful than I had anticipated. A group of bizarrely dressed beings surrounds me in a half circle, gaping at me as though I might attack them at any moment. Many of their hands and heads are covered in garish colors, and when they breathe, tiny white clouds of vapor appear in front of their mouths. One of them, whom I identify as female, has fallen down and spilled her belongings all over the ground. A man with thin rectangles over his eyes edges up to me and utters something in a language I don't understand, but I know it's a question. Who are you? What are you? His fearful eyes ask, darting back and forth between my face and Ori. I nod an apology at the woman on the ground. I'm sorry, I think, although in truth I am relieved. Given the unfathomable number of scenarios I could have found myself stepping into, this one is nothing short of ideal. There is oxygen in the air and a star in the sky and a civilization of beings who seem to be docile. I sprint away in the opposite direction as Ori lifts away from my shoulder to glide above me. The full effect of this world surges into my tired brain, a torrent of colors and sounds and frequencies. There are buildings that dwarf those in Cradle City, jutting up from the ground everywhere I look. The star is a blinding ball of white light in a sky so blue that it reminds me of my father's eyes, only more intense. Everything on the ground is coated in heaps of white that reflect the star's illumination back at me. The growling contraptions streaming by are spewing something into the air. I can feel the griminess of it on my skin and seeping into my body as I run, and I wonder how these beings can tolerate breathing in such air. It's all so loud, so dense with vibrations, zigzagging, intertwining, colliding, that I have trouble processing my own thoughts. I close my eyes, trying to flush out all the noise, and immediately sense the impact coming, but not in time to avoid it. One of the growling contraptions barrels into me from the side and throws me backward into the air. My reflexes take over, and I manage to land on my feet unharmed. Another flock of prying gazes is upon me in an instant, dozens of them digging into me from all directions. They peer out at me from the river of contraptions, from entryways in the faces of nearby structures, along the crowded pathways. They want to know who I am, how I am still standing, and why I look so strange. Some of them even want to know if I am dangerous. The man inside the contraption that just ran into me steps out of it and stumbles up to me. I'm so sorry, I didn't even see you. Are you all right? How did you... I don't understand the sounds he's making, but I can feel his mind buzzing with guilt and anxiety and shock. He reaches out and tries to touch me, but I flinch and leap away. I do not like being the center of attention. In fact, my instincts tell me to avoid it, just as I would a minder's plasma gun pointed straight at my heart, because being looked at means being vulnerable. So I dart past the man and start running again. I run past large beings and beings wearing pointy shoes and beings conversing with no one and beings guiding ugly furry creatures that shout at me. There are changing colored lights that hang above the river of contraptions, and a man dressed in a glaring shade of red with white curls dangling from his face. He waves an object back and forth that makes an annoying ringing sound. At last I discover a narrow pathway between two structures that is empty of prying eyes. Ori settles himself on top of a large, foul-smelling green box. The color of it reminds me of the field I was standing in only a few moments ago, except that I am eons away from that field now. I lean my weight against the box to collect myself and shut my eyes again, letting myself bask in the starlight. Slowly, very slowly, all of the superfluous noise in my brain peels away. The din of snarling machines and voices and too much movement. And then I can hear it, hiding beneath all the noise, the tiny vibration of the link that lets me know I have come to the right place. It is a small sound that represents a small hope, but it is all I have. So I open my eyes and I set off again, chasing down a ripple in the air that only I can feel. And that is the first installment of Sideways into Chaos. If you enjoyed this immersive story experience, there will be another installment coming in probably a few weeks. I'll probably do at least one a month, mixed in between roleplay videos, trigger videos. We'll have a variety of videos happening each month. So keep an eye out for the next chapter in the story. Be sure to subscribe and like this video. And thank you so much for spending time with me tonight. And I'll see you for the next one.